Ladies and gentlemen, grab your goggles, straighten your skinny tie, and prepare for takeoff. Because today we're diving headfirst into the fiberglass fever dream that tried to save an entire car company with a nose that didn't have a grille, a name that meant forward in Italian, and an engine that sucked more air than a teenager pretending to blow into a breathalyzer at a party. Say hello to the 1963 Studebaker Avanti R2. The car that looked like it came from Mars and accelerated like it was late for re-entry. But before we crack open the supercharger and scare the neighborhood dogs, let's give a heartfelt thank you to our loyal channel sponsors. You know who you are. Thanks to your monthly generosity, we can afford to keep the lights on, the research deep, and the jokes medium well. You folks are the built-in roll bar to our fiberglass body. Cheers to you. Now let's rewind to South Bend, Indiana, 1961, a town known for football, frozen fingers, and at the time, the floundering Studebaker Corporation. In walked Joe Egbert, the freshly installed president who had the kind of midlife epiphany most men have in sporting goods stores. Except instead of buying a kayak or starting a podcast, Egbert doodled a sleek performance car on a napkin during a flight. That sketch, believe it or not, launched one of the boldest Hail Marys in automotive history. The Avanti. To turn the doodle into steel, well, fiberglass, Egbert roped in industrial designer Raymond Loewy. Yes, the same Loewy who designed everything from locomotives to Lucky Strike packaging and set an absurd deadline, designed the whole thing in 40 days. Loewy's team, Tom Kellogg, John Epstein, and Bob Andrews, worked in the California desert like caffeinated monks and cooked up a car that looked like a jet, thought like a GT, and sounded like a Hoover on steroids. Studebaker, bleeding money and desperate for a win, shoved the Avanti into production with as many off-the-shelf parts as possible. The underpinnings were borrowed from the humble Lark convertible, but the magic happened above the chassis. The body was a swoopy fiberglass shell built by Molded Fiberglass of Ohio, the same folks who handled early Corvettes, and the car featured a grill-less bottom-breather front end that confused chickens and aerodynamicists alike. When the Avanti launched in 1962 as a 1963 model, Studebaker hoped for 10,000 sales. Studebaker turned out 4,647 Avantis before South Bend went dark in December 1963, 1,552 of them the spicy, supercharged R2s. At another 281 R2s built as 1964 model cars during late 1963 before the lights went out on December 20th, and you land at 1,833 R2s total. How many survived? Let's just say finding one today is like finding an honest politician. Technically possible, but you'll need luck and a metal detector. Now let's get under the fiberglass and poke around. The Avanti R2 was a front-engine, rear-wheel drive coupe with attitude. Its heart was a 289 cubic inch, 4.7 litres OHV V8 sourced from the Hawk and Starlight lines, but in R2 form it had a little secret. A Paxton centrifugal supercharger bolted on top, blowing roughly 5 pounds per square inch of boost into a lowered compression 9.0 to 1 setup. The result? A mighty 289 horsepower at 5,200 revolutions per minute. Coincidence? Maybe. Cool? Definitely. Transmission options were classic. A 4-speed Borg-Warner T10 manual for the brave, or a 3-speed automatic for those who like to sip coffee with one hand while outrunning Buicks. The R2's rear axle had a 3.73 to 1 ratio, giving it solid punch from a stoplight, and the suspension was a mix of modified Lark parts, coil springs and control arms up front, heavy-duty leaf springs out back. Not exactly Formula One, but more than enough to scare the pants off your dentist. Brakes? Oh, here's where it got fancy. The Avanti was the first American production car with Dunlop-designed front disc brakes Bendix built and big enough to stop a runaway Optimism. In the back, drums, of course, because even Revolution has a budget. Wheels were typically 15 inches, often styled like magnesium halobrands and wrapped in 6.70 by 15 tires that did their best to keep up. Dimensionally, the Avanti was deceptively lean. It stretched 192.4 inches long and 70.3 inches wide. That's about 4.89 meters by 1.78 meters, and stood low and slippery. It weighed in at around 3,095 pounds, 1,405 kilograms, thanks to the fiberglass body, which meant it could move fast. Official 0 to 60 times were around 7 to 8 seconds, which for 1963 was basically time travel. And on a closed course with factory tweaks, the R2 was clocked at over 158 miles per hour. Fuel economy? Please. If you were buying a supercharged GT coupe in 1963, you probably didn't ask. Owners report mileage in the high teens under gentle driving, but honestly, nobody bought an Avanti to hypermile. You bought it to impress people, blast down highways, and maybe break a few land speed records on the weekends. Because yes, the Avanti did exactly that. Inside, it was surprisingly modern. 4 bucket seats, count 'em 4, meant everyone to feel like a jet pilot. The dashboard was wide, flat, and covered in gauges, and some cars even had aircraft-style overhead switches. Safety wasn't an afterthought either. Every Avanti came with an integral steel roll bar built into the roof, optional 3-point seatbelts front and rear, a first for United States cars, and a padded dash to soften the blow of your questionable decisions. The R2 wasn't just a quick car. It was a quick car with vision. Studebaker engineers may have rushed it into production, but they managed to squeeze in some of the era's most advanced features, from the supercharged power plant to high-speed aerodynamics. Its drag coefficient hovered around 0.31, astonishing for the early 1960s, and that smooth grille-less nose wasn't just for show. It worked. But perhaps the most surprising thing? The R2 wasn't just a one-trick pony. It was also a record setter. A near-stock R2 hit 158 miles per hour at Bonneville, and the Avanti family collectively racked up 29 international speed records on the salt flats. That's not just impressive, it's historically baller. And yet, as amazing as it was, the Avanti was also tragically short-lived. When Studebaker pulled the plug in late 1963, it left behind a trail of broken hearts, unsold cars, and the kind of design that wouldn't be seen again until, well, maybe never. But the R2 didn't vanish. It survived. It raced. It found its way into collector garages and midnight Craigslist searches. It became a symbol not just of what Studebaker could do, but of what a little desperation and a whole lot of chutzpah can create when Detroit meets daydream. So where does that leave us today? Well, for starters, owning a Studebaker Avanti R2 is like joining a secret society. You don't see them often, and when you do, the person behind the wheel is probably grinning like they just stole something. Survivors are few, and unrestored originals with matching engines are rare unicorns with superchargers. Prices reflect that. When new, an R2-loaded Avanti cost about $4,655, roughly $42,000 in today's money. That wasn't cheap in 1963, but today, let's just say if you find a clean one under $50,000, buy it before someone else does. The highest recorded sale was around $126,500, but most excellent condition R2s go for $50,000 to $80,000. More worn examples still pull $30,000 to $40,000, making it oddly affordable for a fiberglass missile with real racing heritage and more style than most modern coupes. And to you, dear reader, if you ever see an Avanti at a car meet, walk over. Compliment it. Ask about the Paxton blower. Then brace yourself for a 2-hour conversation that starts with, "Did I ever tell you about Bonneville?" and ends with, "Anyway, that's why it beat the Corvette." And if you're ever lucky enough to drive one, don't floor it until your toupee is securely fastened. If you liked this blast from the past, make sure to like, subscribe, and maybe consider becoming a channel member.